Hello and welcome to the 315. My name is Ruth Woodsend. I am here to be the teacher at your kitchen dining table to perhaps answer questions that you might have about the secondary process when school has officially finished. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about GCSE exam access arrangements, and it's a really big, quite complex topic. So I've written a blog post about it as well. Like all good bloggers and vloggers, I've linked it below, and hopefully in this video I'm going to go through some really specific examples to give you an idea of what your child might be offered in terms of access arrangements. I want to say really clearly at the beginning as a disclaimer that there are no guarantees at all about what might or might not happen for your child. These are guidelines and I'm going to talk you through that process. So that this video isn't really long and for the sake of speed, I'm going to keep referring to a student or as a child in this video because I'm not sure if it's a parent or a student who's watching, but hopefully either way you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. So the first thing I wanted to cover is what do exam access arrangements mean? Because having spoken to my husband, he was like, I don't even know what that means particularly. So exam access arrangements in a nutshell are anything that are happening for your child or for the student that means that they are on an equal plane with the rest of their peers, so the rest of their year group when they take the exam. So it's really important to know that exam access arrangements should never mean that a student is given more help which puts them in a better position than their friend or their peer in their year. The entire idea of exam access arrangements, gosh that's a mouthful, is that they are put on the same equal footing as everybody else. So to give you an example, exam access arrangements might mean things like, but not exclusively, there's a long list, but things like giving extra time or modifying a paper so it's slightly different, or perhaps giving a student rest breaks to make sure that they have every possible opportunity to achieve as well as their peers. That's the first thing that I should say about exam access arrangements. And as I said at the top of this video, it's a really big subject, and I certainly would not be able to say to you, even in the comments section, exactly what your child may or may not be entitled to. And it might be that they aren't entitled to anything, and that's the end of the story and I can't help any further. But I think there are lots of students who would benefit from knowing what they might be entitled to and what perhaps you as a parent could do to support them with that process. There is an organisation called the JCQ, which is the Joint Council for Qualifications, and they release a document, and they do it every year, that tells anybody, so parents and school teachers and examiners, everything they need to know about what is going to happen that year and what the new guidelines are for that year about exam access arrangements. And you should know that it changes every year. They publish it every year. It's about 100 pages and it is a public document, so it's not a private secret document that only I can get hold of or that only teachers or only examiners can get hold of. I have linked it in the blog post, so if you wanted to read 100 pages, it's actually fairly clearly written and it's given lots and lots of examples, so if you wanted to read it or print it, it's certainly available to anybody. But what I've tried to do in this blog post and this vlog video is to kind of condense that information to try and make it as simple as I possibly can, so it's really clear. The other really main purpose of this video is because I think if you are a student or if you're a parent or a carer and you feel as though perhaps this might be something that your child needs to help them out with their GCSEs, to make sure that they are on equal footing with their peers, then I would hope that you would either read the document or you would read that blog post or you'd watch this video and you would feel like when you go into a meeting with a kind of a parents' evening, or it might be a meeting with the SENCO, the Special Educational Needs Coordinator, if you go into meetings with those people, then at least you have in your head kind of clearly these are perhaps what might come in the meeting and this is the information I perhaps would need to know. So for the sake of speed, I think there are 5 really key takeaways that come up from this big document that I've read through and through my experience of knowing about exam access arrangements. Okay, so number 1, exam access arrangements need to be sorted and there needs to be a discussion about them way before year 11 and year 10 and GCSEs are beginning. And if I talk best case scenario, then ideally in year 7, so the beginning of Key Stage 3, or even perhaps at primary school, if it's something that you and your child and the school are aware of already, there needs to be some discussion that your child needs to have a modification, or something needs to be slightly different, or there needs to be some slight change in the way that they are working or that they are being tested to make sure that they reach their greatest potential, that it's only fair. And there's two reasons for that. One is because there's no point only in year 10 and 11, so key stage 4, there's no point at that point in their education, kind of the school and you and the child putting their hand up and saying, actually, this isn't quite working. I feel as though they're not able to get their ideas down on paper, or they're not able to express themselves, because that means that all the way through key stage 3, so year 7, 8 and 9, that they have struggled in class, that they haven't been given the opportunity to learn in the best possible way. And the second reason is because there needs to be an application that is made to make sure officially that they are allowed to have those access arrangements. It's because in year 9 there will be an application made for those students who officially need extra support or a slight change, so exam access arrangements, in their GCSEs. That is when the application will take place, and it will vary from school to school, but theoretically, certainly in the schools I've worked in, it will happen perhaps halfway through year 9, that teachers and the SENCO, as a team, you will all talk about these students need something slightly different, and they will not do as well in their GCSE exams if they are not given this extra support or this option to do things in a slightly different way. And I hope it goes without saying that it might be a case that some students don't need those exam access arrangements in every single subject. They might need it in just one subject or a handful of subjects, and actually they don't need it in every single one, and that's fine. But you've got to be thinking, I need it to happen as early as possible. Number 2, one of the most important things is that the student really, really, really understands, more than the parent, what the exam access arrangement actually means. So to give you just an example off the top of my head, if a student is entitled to a scribe, for example, they need to be so clear about what that actually means in practice for them when they go to sit their GCSEs. Because I've had examples of students where they are entitled to a scribe, but no one's really fully explained to them exactly what that means and what the scribe can do for them. Below, I actually included in that blog post exactly what a scribe, for example, would be allowed to say to the student and exactly what they can do. And it's really important that you, I guess, as a parent know that, but it's really important that a student knows that, because I've also had occasions where I've been chatting to a member of my tutor group, and they've said, oh, I did this exam and that was good. And then I've said, oh, well, did you ask them to do that? And they said, no, I didn't realise that I could ask the scribe to do that. Or I didn't realise I had to be that specific about punctuation with the scribe. Or I didn't realise that the reader was allowed to read that. Or I didn't realise. And I think that's really important that they know that and that they get lots of practice of doing that. Which brings me on to point number 3. It's really, really important that the student is absolutely used to working in that way. So again, let's pretend that a student has been told they are going to be entitled to a scribe. Again, let's just use scribe as an example. They need to be using that as their normal way of working all the way through getting ready for their GCSEs. And that includes any mocks that they do. So if they are entitled to a scribe, then every time they do a mock exam, whether that's a big one that happens in the hall, or perhaps it's a smaller one that happens just in little pieces, then they have to try and get used to using a scribe. And I've never used a scribe. A scribe would be a huge skill for me to learn, to have to dictate exactly what I would like someone to write. And as a parent, if you're watching this, that would be massive if you could start to help with that. So when they are doing a piece of homework at home, and perhaps it's a piece where they have to answer a little bit of an essay, or they have to do some form of answers in written form, if they are entitled to a scribe, then I would be sitting with them as a parent and saying, okay, let's put the kitchen timer, we've got 20 minutes, okay, go, and I will start to write it. Because the act of saying out loud exactly what you would like an adult to write on your behalf, and including full stop, comma, new paragraph, actually go back and edit that, take that out, it's time consuming, it's an extra part of your headspace that you're having to use, and they need loads of practice with it. The other thing is that the JCQ, again, say very clearly in their document that it should be their normal way of working, that this should be the best way of them working. For the reasons I said earlier, is that that's the best way of them getting their ideas down on paper or expressing themselves. So all the way through year 10 and 11, and if I'm honest, ideally right from earlier than that, as soon as possible, if your child works better like that, then they need to get lots and lots and lots of practice doing it. So by the time they get to year 11 and it's the exams, it's just absolutely standard for them. They understand how to do it and they feel comfortable using that. The same is true if the student is entitled to 25% or maybe in some rarer cases 50% extra time. That is a huge amount of extra time, and lots of students, in my experience, burn out or panic or feel as though I've written all my ideas down actually and now I've finished it. They need loads and loads and loads of practice and time to experience what that extra 25% extra time feels like, and knowing to relax, give themselves the extra time to read the question and read it back over and not have to rush and not feel panicked about it. That's the whole point of it. But if they get to the end of it and they say, I just didn't use it, I didn't need to use it, then they haven't had time, so to speak, to practice utilising that extra time. 4, the paperwork that happens when that exam access arrangements are applied for GCSEs, they get carried with the student. And by that I mean that they shouldn't have to do anything else after that. So again, let's say that they're entitled to a scribe for the sake of argument. If that has been decided at GCSE that they work best with a scribe, then they shouldn't have to go through all the testing and the process again when they go on to do A-levels or university or whatever the next thing is that they're going on to do. The paperwork should travel with the student if it's to a new centre or to a new college, and they make an application again on behalf of that student. So it's really, really, really important, especially if you fought really hard to get those access arrangements, that you are totally transparent with the new centre or the new college or the new education place with what happened for your child over those couple of years. Incidentally, the school or the college should do all of that for your student. That shouldn't be a case that you are fighting all over again to have those access arrangements. We do that. That is something that we should be sorting out. Certainly what shouldn't be happening is a child going to their kind of old college or their old school and physically picking up the paperwork and taking it with them. There's no reason for that to happen. If a new centre, a new college know that they are entitled to that, then they speak to the old place and those documents get carried across. That happens all the time. So definitely make sure that you are transparent in those conversations, in interviews, in applications to new centres, to say they were entitled to those things, and I want to make sure that that continues now, which brings me on really clearly to point number 5. Number 5 is that there is nothing on the exam documentation or the results slip which say your child had exam access arrangements or extra help or some form of modification. There's nothing that is written down that says that. And I say that because, as I say in the blog post, I don't want any student or parent for that matter to think, well, I wouldn't want to get it because I don't want somebody to look at it and think, ugh, they had extra help. A, they're absolutely entitled to that extra help, and if it means that that allowed them to reach their full potential, then my goodness, they should be entitled to it. But B, that there is going to be no record of that on their official documents. So please don't, if that is even a thing, don't allow that to be the reason that you don't apply or that you're hesitant about applying or using those exam access arrangements. I hope that's been a really useful video to give you a bit of an overview of what might happen and what your child might be entitled to over the next couple of years. If you have any questions, then please don't hesitate to write them in the comments box below, and I will try really hard to answer them myself. And if I don't know the answer, then I will make sure I find out the answer from a credible source rather than you going round and round, Googling and trawling the internet. As I said at the beginning of this video, I definitely couldn't say whether a student was or was not entitled to extra support in exams, and even the school will only be able to make an application to the JCQ to find out. If this video has been useful, then please press the like button and make sure you are subscribed to my channel to make sure you get notifications of new videos that come up.